What's the fastest way to learn a new skill? That's exactly the question I had when I wanted to learn photography last year. I had zero experience, no knowledge, and I didn't know anyone who could show me the ropes. But I had spent the last 20 years playing music, and I applied some of the same concepts to accelerate the learning process. So in today's video, I want to share with you how I quickly learned new skills, and I'll use some examples from my experiences learning guitar and photography. And the first thing I want to talk about is the Pareto principle, aka the 80-20 rule. So the Pareto principle is what Tim Ferriss started his whole career on. And if you don't know who Tim Ferriss is, he's the author of the 4-Hour Workweek. He had the Tim Ferriss Show where he actually would explore this principle in great detail with each episode. In one of the episodes, Tim Ferriss is trying to learn how to play drums in like 5 days or something like that. And he's going to go on stage and play with this band. And at first, the teachers are struggling to get him to learn how to play drums. And he's struggling really hard because everybody's trying to teach him music theory on a fundamental level, when really the goal is just to be able to play a song in 5 days. And so what they were doing is they were trying to teach him like how to play quarter notes, how to play to a click track, all this stuff. And all this, it was just too much, too fast, right? All he needed to do was know how to play that specific song. And what he really needed to do was just learn how to play the groove, because the groove is going to be 80% of the song, and the drum fills, ba 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 ba, is just the complicated extra stuff. That's that extra 20% that he didn't really need to learn in time. He just needed to learn the 80% of the song, which is the boom, ka, right? That's all he needed to know. So once the teachers and him realized that that's the 20% that he needs to learn to be able to play 80% of the song, they dropped all the music theory stuff and they just started teaching him how to play a groove. And he was able to perform live on stage, even though he was nervous as shit. It's actually a really cool episode. I really enjoyed watching that. And I have a similar experience with learning how to play guitar. When I was learning how to play guitar back in the day, it's like, where do you start, right? Am I supposed to learn music theory? Am I supposed to take a class? Like, what do you learn, right? And I remember asking my dad, like, hey, I want to learn how to play guitar. Where should I start? And he showed me how to play a G chord, a C chord, and a D chord. And once I learned those 3 chords, it was like, okay, you could pretty much play 80% of the music out in the world. I'm like, really? And it's true. If you look at like the Beatles, Tom Petty, all these different artists throughout history have written songs just using those 3 chords. If you could just learn those 3 chords, you could use that as a starting point, that 20% starting point, to be able to start exploring music and learning from there. You don't need to learn music theory and all these different scales and how to use modal structures and all this stuff. You just need to learn a few chords and then start playing guitar. And then from there, you can get more specific. But if you're just trying to learn something fast, you just need to learn that 20%. When I was learning photography, these essentials were the exposure triangle. So when you go to take a photo, right, click, and it's all whited out. Well, that photo is not exposed properly. It's too bright. Too much light has got into the lens. So the very first thing to be able to just take photos is to figure out how to get the light right. So you do that by learning how to adjust your shutter speed, your aperture, and the ISO levels. Once you figure that out, you've learned those 3 things, well, guess what? Now you could take photos. Like, you could just go take photos of anything. I could take a photo of anything outside, anything in the room, my dog, whatever. And that's pretty much like it. You can get better from there. So if you can figure out what that 20% is for learning the skill that'll get 80% of the results, then you're off to a really good start. And that's the Pareto principle in a nutshell. Just figure out what are the core pieces that'll get me started. And then once I've started, I can focus on getting better from there. But I just need to be able to like do the thing. Like, I need to be able to ride the bike. I don't need to be able to do backflips and stuff yet. A good way to figure out what that 20% is to just look it up online. Actually, a lot of people have kind of done this analysis on learning new skills. So a lot of forums are going to be helpful for this. And you can even just ask GPT, like, what is the 80-20 on learning how to write? And it'll probably come up with a pretty reasonable answer for you. The second thing I want to talk about is you should start a project. We learn best by doing, not by researching. This means from day one, you should be starting to work toward a project. Project-based learning is so much better than just reading information and learning about it. When you just like, okay, so if I just receive information, like I'm talking to you, you're hearing me speak, and you're learning something, right? Well, that's just information. You haven't done anything with that information yet, so your brain hasn't registered it as useful or applicable to anything in your life. And so what's going to happen is it's going to quickly decay in your memory because it's not going to see it as relevant or useful to the things that you're doing. So when you have a project, what happens is the information you're learning about the skill is going to be filtered through the lens of I'm trying to accomplish this goal here. And that will make the information relevant and useful to what you're trying to do, which is more likely to be retained in your head. Also, when you do things, it creates a neural connection in your mind that kind of cements that in your memory forever. If you don't have a project or a goal, like a lens to view the incoming information, then you're not really likely to make those cemented connections in your mind. They're going to help you learn that skill really fast. So like if you want to learn graphic design, the best way to do it is to have a project in mind. Like I want to design a logo for a cookie shop or something like that, right? And that way, every tutorial you watch, the information will go through the lens of how can I apply this to making the logo that I'm going to make. So when you learn how to use the shape builder tool, then you think, oh, I could use that to make the cookie itself. If you're watching a tutorial and it's showing you how to use the curvature tool, you know, oh, I can make the little holes in the cookie using that curvature tool to get the irregular shape. If you're going to learn how to play guitar, pick a specific song. If you're going to learn how to do graphic design, start with the project like a logo. If you're going to learn how to write your first article, don't just start writing free form forever. Like maybe start with like, I'm going to write an article on learning how to write. Okay. If you're going to do photography, start with like a specific thing. Like I want to learn how to do macro photography, or I want to learn how to take a photo of the outdoors. Or just think about video editing for a second. How are you supposed to learn how to edit a video if you aren't making videos, right? You're not just going to watch a bunch of tutorials teaching you how to use Premiere Pro and showing you how to use the ripple tool and cut all these frames, and you're not even making videos yourself. You won't remember a single thing that's said. So you got to start with the project. You got to start with a goal. It's by far the best way to do it. And the third thing I want to talk about is gamify your daily practice. Daily practice is necessary to learn a new skill, but it could be a challenge to stay motivated because it's really hard in the beginning. Overcome this challenge by gamifying your learning and practice session. All right, practice is boring. It's not sexy. It's not fun. And especially not fun when you're first learning how to do something because you're trying to do stuff and your taste is up here, but your skill level's down here. So you have this idea in your head like, oh, I want to learn how to do that, but you're only able to get to here, and that is up here. And the only way you're going to close that gap is through deliberate practice and project-based learning and slowly filling that gap with knowledge and experience, right? Well, the problem is because it's so hard and that gap is so wide at the start, it's really demotivating. And when we get demotivated, we kind of give up on things really quickly. So the best way to overcome this motivational hurdle at the beginning is to kind of gamify the process. So a fun way to do this is to just track progress. This is probably the easiest way to do it. There's something called the progress principle where basically we're more creative and motivated to do things if we feel like we're making progress on a meaningful task. And the cool thing is that progress doesn't have to be really big, grand progress. It can actually just be really baby steps like, oh, I was able to finally play that note without making the thing go clink, just something simple like that. I was finally able to draw a straight line without my hand doing this weird shaky thing. That's progress, and we feel good when that happens. So just tracking progress is a really good way to kind of hack your mental system to start to feel good about just making any amount of progress. So if you set out to practice for 20 minutes a day, every day you practice, just mark a little X on your calendar or whatever it is. And that little progress tracker is going to give you that little dopamine hit and that little bit of reward going like, I am getting closer. I've been working on this for 10 days now. I'm starting to get closer to my goal here. And you're going to be able to see the progress as well once you get to work on whether it's learning guitar or photography or whatever it is for you. Another way you could gamify it is to tally up your failures or your attempts, right? See, most people think failure is a bad thing. Like, ooh, I failed. I suck. I can't ever do this. But that's just not the truth. The way we learn is through struggle. The way we learn is through failure. So by doing something wrong, your brain actually figures out what not to do, which allows it to get closer to what you should do. And so when you start viewing failure as actually a path to learning, a faster path to learning than just getting it perfect from the start, which, by the way, is not realistic. Like nobody does that, right? So there's always failure involved. There's thousands of failures involved. So the fastest way to learn something is to actually start viewing failure as the fastest route to success. And so what you could do is start tallying up those failures. Every time you try to play a song and you mess up a note, make a note. Ooh, I failed that time. Let's see if I can get it right this time. And you can kind of gamify this. You can make it more of a, like, it's like almost like a high score, right? Like, how fast can I fail? How many attempts can I get here before I get it right? And then can I get that number less? So if you're trying to learn a song and you mess up 20 times the first time you try to play it, there's 20 times where you mess up, you got to make a little tally. Well, now you got a little game, because can you play the song and get it right without messing up 20 times? Can you do it in maybe 10 mistakes, 5 mistakes? Can you get through the whole song without any mistakes? This is like setting a challenge for yourself. It's gamifying the process, and it's making it more enjoyable. Like, you're getting those dopamine hits of like, oh, I'm making progress. I'm getting closer to my goal of being able to play this song without messing up. My favorite thing that I did when I was learning photography was to have a daily photo challenge, which I found a website. It was a free website. I wish I could remember the name, but I don't remember it. And it had one-word prompts for a photography challenge. So I would wake up every morning, I would open up the website, and I would see, and it would be like a one-word prompt. It would say something like bird or car or yellow. And so that would be my prompt. I would have to go find a photo that day that was relevant to the one-word prompt. And this was like extremely motivating for me. It gamified the process, because every day I felt like I was on a scavenger hunt. So every morning I'd grab my camera, put it in the camera bag, grab my dog, go for a walk. And on this walk, I would just be on the lookout for yellow, right? And maybe I would see a flower that was yellow. I'd be like, ooh, that would be like a really good photo prompt. And that was just like a really fun way to gamify the learning experience, so that practicing photography wasn't like, it didn't have as much friction. It was a lot more exciting to get towards, because otherwise there's kind of like a lot of friction, right? Like, oh, how am I supposed to practice photography? I got to bring my camera with me everywhere. Well, it's like, if you're on this little scavenger hunt, you want to bring your camera with you everywhere. Like, well, what if I come across this really cool thing that's relevant to the prompt? So that's another really interesting way to gamify the learning process, is to just create a series of challenges, or find a free challenge online that you can sign up for or just get for free, and do the challenges. And if you can't find one online, have ChatGPT create some for you. Just on a final note, you need rest. You can't just power level your way to learn something fast. You might think by sitting there and playing guitar for 8 hours, you'll be able to learn quicker, but it's just not the case. You have to rest. Sleep consolidates our memory. It makes everything that we learn get cemented into the long-term storage. And so if you're just like trying to power level your way through learning guitar, you're playing 8 hours a day, you're not really getting good sleep, you're not giving your mind space to allow the information to kind of settle and make the new connections, you're just kind of wasting time. So there are diminishing returns. In general, you don't really want to spend more than like 1 to 2 hours practicing on something. I know some people will probably disagree, but I mean, come on, like how much guitar can you really learn in a day? How much can you improve your drawing skills in a day, right? It's like, once you're past 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, it's like, what are you doing? Like, you're not really learning anymore. You're just messing up on the same thing again and again. Give yourself a break, get some rest, go to sleep. You'll come back way better the next day. You need that sleep to consolidate the information you're learning into long-term storage. That's how your memory creates new connections subconsciously. Like that restorative process of sleep will do that. And then there's also been a lot of studies that show that sleep will improve like hand-eye coordination type skills. So if you're learning how to throw a baseball, or if you're learning how to play guitar, and you're struggling with the actual motor skill of doing it, studies have shown that getting some sleep after a long practice session will actually improve your ability to do that motor skill the next day. I was watching a Huberman Labs podcast when I found out about that. I can link it in the description below. Super interesting. Sleep has been shown to have a ton of benefits for learning, so highly recommend checking it out if you're interested. The most important thing is if you're going to learn something new, try not to put all your hopes and dreams into it, because that is the fastest way to kill any potential for a passion that it might possibly offer for your life. If you're learning how to make videos because you think it's going to be your ticket to financial freedom, and you don't get that financial freedom within 6 months, 12 months, or whatever, you're going to be extremely disappointed, right? Because your expectations were here and you only got to here. And you're just going to end up giving up on it, and you're going to lose that passion for it, and you're not going to have any interest in doing it. And what could have been something that lasted a lifetime will only last a few months because you put too much of your hopes and dreams and aspirations into learning this thing, when it really could just be like, it could just be a nice thing you do, just a nice additive hobby to your life that just brings more joy and fulfillment and gives you a way to learn and progress in areas of your life that are outside of your career. Um, when I first learned how to play guitar, I had dreams of being a world-renowned musician, but they weren't really like, I didn't actually think that was going to happen. I really just wanted to play guitar because it was fun and enjoyable. And the reason it's been able to last in my life for 20 years is because at no point did I ever think I was going to actually make a living being a musician, probably because everybody told me that was impossible, which I've now realized was a lie. But because I didn't have that delusion in my head, I was actually able to keep with that hobby for pretty much my entire life. I've been playing guitar since I was 13, and I'm 33 now, and I've pretty consistently played music that entire time. And it's always been a beautiful part of my life. It's like one of my favorite things. And now I'm in a band and I take it pretty seriously, and we're trying to take it professionally, and we're going through the professional movements, we're playing shows, we're getting stuff recorded, and there is a potential for it to turn into more. But that passion's already been developed. I didn't kill it before I had a chance to grow. It's already a part of my life. It's will always be a part of my life, regardless if the band succeeds or fails. It's just a part of who I am at this point. So I would highly recommend avoiding putting all your hopes and dreams and aspirations into this new skill. Just let it be something fun. Let it be additive to your life. Enjoy it. Let it become a passion over time. And eventually, maybe you could take it to the next level if you really love it.